Today's video is on a manga I had heard very little about before reading it. Nezumi's First Love by Osato Riku is a dark romance manga that follows Nezumi, a young lady that works as a hitman for the Yakuza who raised her. She falls in love with an ordinary man who knows nothing of her profession. This is a story of love persevering through extraordinary circumstances and the lengths two people will go through to protect it. Quick disclaimer before the video, I won't really cover any of the darker scenes from the manga outside of a couple of gory fight scenes, but everything on screen is something covered in the manga. So here's your warning if you do start this story. Okay, now to the video. The story starts with Nezumi looking at a stuffed seal head in an arcade machine, and a boy looking at another. The story cuts to someone trying to make an urgent call in a photo booth. The man is clearly stressing about something and is fearing for his life. He's urging his grandmother to pick him up as soon as possible. He's explaining where he is and pleading with her to come and get him, while Nezumi stands just outside the booth. The call goes silent as the grandma calls out to her nephew. A drop of blood hits the phone. Then we see his lifeless body leaning over the phone as Nezumi leaves the booth, his grandmother still calling out to him. She leaves the photo booth after notifying them that she's completed her assignment, and takes one last look at the seal. She goes to leave the arcade, but is interrupted by the boy who offers to try and win the toy for her. He struggles to get it and tells her to wait for him while he goes to get more change. Her phone buzzes with a message asking where she is. The boy comes back to find her gone. She is hit in the face when she enters a car. She gets scolded by an elderly man who tells her not to hang around the scene of the crime. She apologizes before he asks what she was doing. She tells him she was looking at a doll. She then arrives at her apartment and goes to sleep in this depressingly empty room with no furniture or anything of character. It's evident she only buys what she needs to survive and complete her assignments. She wakes up after a terrible dream and goes out to complete her day of killing. This is her daily routine she follows day in and day out. The story then cuts to her meeting up with her boss. Evidently she is working for a criminal organization. The boss thanks her with a dehumanizing analogy of her being the best tool he owns for her proficiency in killing. He thanks her again for being the reason their group has been able to grow so large. He asks her to forget about the past before we get a short flashback to her killing someone when she was younger. The boss then asks her if there's anything she wants and not to hold back on her request. She tilts her head, pondering the offer. Now she's taking a walk before sitting on a swing in a park. Someone approaches her and asks if they can sit next to her. It's the boy from earlier. He asks her if she remembers him and Nezumi says she does. He passes her the seal she was looking at in the arcade. He then tells her it cost him around 5,000 yen in the end, which is about 30 USD and 50 AUD for anyone who's curious. He asks her to take it. Nezumi then asks if that's why he's been following her. The boy is taken aback when she says that she noticed him. Nezumi then asks if this is some sort of prank. The boy tells her no, he wanted to call out to her but was nervous. Nezumi asks if she can leave now. As she begins to leave, the boy asks her to wait. He confesses that he hasn't been able to get her out of his head since they met, and he's been looking all over for her. He then admits he fell for her at first sight. She has a shocked expression on her face while he apologizes, which is the first time we see Nezumi with a different expression besides a blank stare. She then asks to leave again and begins walking away, but the boy asks her to wait again and asks her if she would like to go out with him. He tells her he'd never played the crane game before, but he just had to talk to her and lied about knowing how to win the prize. He tells her it's his first time feeling this way. She's getting flustered and says she has no idea what he's talking about before he shouts out that he's in love with her. He asks her yet again if she would go out with him. Nezumi tells him it's just not possible for her, and the boy pleads with her to change her mind. She then asks him why he's crying. Now we see her toothbrush alone in her bathroom, only for the very next panel to show two together in a much brighter room. Nezumi enters her apartment and is greeted by the boy from earlier. They are obviously a couple now. She greets him as well, and we finally get to know the boy's name, Al. They live a happy life, playing games and eating together among other things. It's evident Al has brought colour into Nezumi's life. I mean, it's plain in just the way her facial expressions have changed. The way she looks at her phone when Al messages, or pouting when he beats her in a game. He's brought so much expression and emotion into her life in such a short time. It seems her life is heading in a much more positive direction. During a walk he takes her past a restaurant he has got reservations for. It's for Nezumi's birthday. Later that night she tells him she hasn't been having nightmares anymore since being with him, and he tells her he's been thinking less about his dead sister since he met her. The next evening rolls around and Nezumi has arrived early and is waiting outside the restaurant for Al. She's nervous but is quickly distracted by a phone call from her boss. He tells her something has come up and needs her. She says she's not supposed to be working today, but he says he will be waiting. She sends Al some messages saying she won't be able to make it to dinner, and leaves. The boss takes her to a garage and apologizes for ruining her evening. Nezumi is now wearing the blank expression she wore before meeting Al. She steps out of the car to see two men torturing someone. It's Al. The organization she works for has taken him, and now they are asking her to kill him. That's the end of chapter 1. If you don't want spoilers for the rest of this story, click off the video now, as I'm going to spoil some more events of the story. In chapter 2, it's revealed that Al knows she's an assassin. He had seen her on one of her assignments, killing someone. After being urged to kill him, she says this is the one person she really doesn't want to kill. She begs for them to spare him. She is then held down while the boss tells her he will fix her and begins walking towards Al with a knife. After a brief back and forth between the boss and Al, Nezumi starts pleading again for them to spare Al. She has a flashback to some of the moments she spent with Al, and then she says that she will teach Al to be an assassin. She offers to make him a useful tool for the organization so he can be of use to them. The boss begins digging the blade deeper into Al's neck. Nezumi then says if Al dies, then she dies as well before biting into her tongue. Her ploy works and they grant her wish. She has 1 month to turn Al into an assassin. That's all of the story I'll be spoiling, but this story has some interesting twists later that are definitely worth reading. I recommend you try Nezumi's First Love if you feel like reading a romance with John Wick action scenes. Now what I think is the absolute strength of Nezumi's First Love is the art. It's super clean and simple. You never have to think about what's happening on the panel as it's laid out perfectly clear. For example, when Nezumi is teaching Al how to properly kill someone from behind, it's laid simply and it's nice to see the process of how she trains him. The fight scenes are without question the best parts. Watching Nezumi blitz dozens of people with just a knife is fun to watch. She moves like a force they have no power over, and they honestly remind me of some of the scenes from John Wick, especially her fight with Messiah. It's just complete carnage that admittedly gets a little bit silly at times. The perspectives used in the double spreads are something else I find really cool. Like the shot of Nezumi walking down the stairs, originally it looks ordinary with just her walking down with a blank expression. Then the double spread is shot from above her, looking down on the enemies, kind of conveying how she's the dominant force in the room, looming over them. There are a lot of highly detailed pieces of art that 100% accentuate the scenes they are in and give them more weight. Overall, the art is certainly enjoyable and caters to the story very well, at least in my opinion. Nezumi's First Love is an interesting read that balances a lot of different topics, and I think it is doing an okay job. It's certainly a tense read when either Al or Nezumi is in a bad situation. The romance aspects are also refreshing after an intense arc or scene. I like how the author has been handling Al's transition into the world and the guilt and side effects he has to deal with when becoming a killer. I recommend this story to someone who likes romance stories but is looking for something different and maybe darker than the more generic romance manga that are abundant. It's a fun story that I'm interested in seeing where Al and Nezumi's story goes. Well, that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!